4040 Vision podcast. I'm your host, Khaled Abdallah, and today's topic is the 2024 AFC over-under win totals retrospective. Last week we did the NFC, and this week we're doing the AFC. I'm here with Sulman, my co-host. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Not much. You ready to dive into some predictions? There was quite a few where we were wrong, so we'll start off
Let's
with
do this.
Yeah, we're going to go in order by division, but we'll start with the 1 seed because that's just kind of how it goes. So we'll start with the AFC West and the Kansas City Chiefs. So their over-under or projected win total coming into the season was 11.5. They were coming off an 11-6 season where, of course, they won the Super Bowl. I went under, you went over. So what did you see about this team and what did you get right about them?
It's the Chiefs, right? They always just find a way to win somehow, right? Even though they lost receivers, they somehow just, Patrick Mahomes didn't play as well this year. He was just having an okay season, whatever. But they found a way to get it done. Andy Reid found a way to get it done. The defense stepped up. They're always the kind of a regular season monster for the most part. So I thought that's what was going to happen again this year, and that's exactly what happened, right? They were just, even though Patrick Mahomes fell off, they still found a way to just keep winning games, and that's what they did. So that's just how the Chiefs do it.
Yeah, my thought process going under was that they would coast a little bit. I was thinking for all the reasons. I didn't think that they would be a bad team, obviously. I thought they would still win the division, but I thought 11 wins would have been enough. In this case, it would not have been. Maybe if they had the tiebreaker over the Chargers, who also finished 11-6. We'll get to them. But they were just such a weird team. Their point differential, if you don't include Week 18, was plus 97. So if you average that out to their 15 wins or their 16 other games, that's not that much. That would have put them, I think, 8th or 9th in the NFL, which is not something that you expect from a team that went basically 15-1. You don't count that last game because they played their JV squad against the Broncos. So they could have theoretically gone 16-1 because they had, they beat the Broncos earlier in the season. But there was just this long stretch where they were winning in the most ridiculous of ways, whether it was like Isaiah Likely's big toe being out, the blocked kick against Denver. So just a weird team. And I think like you said, they just know how to win, and then they just have that DNA. And it's really annoying because it's like the Patriots dynasty where they just, if they're in a close game, if it's a 1 or even 2 score game at the end, you're just like, they're going to find a way to pull this out. And it's one of those things where like you have to cut off the head to really beat them. You can't give them a chance. Like the Bills, when they beat them in their only real loss of the season, the Bills went for the head and they got them. So I'll take the L on this one. The next team, the Los Angeles Chargers, their projected win total was 8.5. We were both wrong. We both went under for a couple different reasons, but they ended up going 11-6, so they kind of blow past this projected win total by 3 games. What did we get wrong about the Chargers?
I think we were not expecting their defense to be as good. I think their defense was pretty good this year. Tell me where they finished, Khaled. I'm not even sure, but maybe top 12, give or take.
I laugh when you said pretty good because they were the number 1 scoring defense, and that's what I care about.
Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Scoring is Wow. I didn't know they were that good. Okay. I knew they were definitely a top 10 unit, but I didn't think they were that good. Top 12 unit. And then, Justin Herbert, pretty good on the off. They were pretty good offensively for the most part in the regular season. Yeah, some stupid mistakes here and there, but I just think Jim Harbaugh coached them up. That's what happened. He coached them up. He had no business making the playoffs with this team, but somehow J.K. Dobbins having a career year, but he gets hurt. I mean, he turns J.K. Dobbins into almost an all-pro running back in this season. Right? That's what happens before J.K. Dobbins gets hurt. So I mean, Harbaugh is very good at coaching guys up, and it seems like he did it here again. And that's we didn't factor in the Harbaugh factor here.
You know what's kind of ironic about Jim Harbaugh is he was an NFL quarterback for a long time. He maybe has this reputation as a quarterback whisperer. You're like, okay, he did it with Alex Smith, with Colin Kaepernick in college. J.J. McCarthy turned him into a top 10 pick. And then you look at his teams, and for the most part, they're like defensive powerhouses. The Niners, when they were good, what was that built on? It was built on a top three, top one defense in the NFL, a strong running game. And I think that's what he did is he brought a sense of toughness to this team that they were lacking for a long time under Brandon Staley, who was supposed to be like this defensive guru, who might be the next Niners coordinator. But what is it about? Like, I don't get it. Like, why is the perception of Harbaugh like, oh, he's gonna come, help Justin Herbert thrive, and then Justin Herbert has, at least statistically, the worst season of his career, or worst full season of his career. So like, why do people have it backwards?
I don't know. I mean, people are like, oh, look what he did with Alex Smith. He turned Alex Smith's career around, right? Like Alex Smith was just the game manager until Harbaugh showed up, and he's going in and beating the Saints in the playoffs when Harbaugh comes up, right? Colin Kaepernick, he's destroying the Packers. But I think people get it wrong. What Jim Harbaugh is doing, though, for those guys, he was taking the pressure off them to make plays by throwing the ball. He was leaning heavily on the run game, and it helped that Kaepernick could run the ball too, right? Like Colin Kaepernick, how did he destroy the Packers? He ran for like 150 yards on the Packers, right, in that playoff game. It's not like he threw for 300 yards and then ran for one. He had a lot of rushing yards. Jim Harbaugh actually has like a very physical play style, and it's built off the run. It's built off the play action, and people think because he's making it easier for the quarterback, oh, he's helping them. I don't think Justin Herbert is much of a big time play action guy. It doesn't seem like it. Like he struggles in the play action for whatever reason, and that's why he probably didn't have a good year. But he also doesn't have weapons, right? I mean, his best wide receiver is Quentin Johnson. I mean, Ladd McConkey comes in at the end, right? He comes on. So maybe he has Ladd next year, and then maybe they go get another receiver. I mean, injured J.K. Dobbins was his running back, and still Harbaugh made it work with Gus Edwards and that rookie running back. But that's it. Harbaugh needs a good run game, and then he can play action off that, and that's his bread and butter. That's how he makes it. And then he has to have a top five defensive unit. Like that's the perception I had of Harbaugh as a Niners fan. Like I didn't think of him as a quarterback whisperer. I was like, damn, if he doesn't have a Colin Kaepernick, like let's say we gave him some other random quarterback, like put Trent Dilfer on Harbaugh's team, I don't think he does anything with Trent Dilfer, right? Like that kind of quarterback's like just mediocre backup dude. Harbaugh would just run the ball like 70 times a game. Like that's probably what his game plan would have been. He wouldn't even throw it once.
I think you nailed it. You said that he takes the pressure off. And I think that's what I mean by quarterback whisperer. Like he's not, Andy Reid, where he's going to have them throw the ball around 50, 60 times a game, where their numbers are going to be great, but he's going to take the pressure off. He's going to tell Herbert, like, you don't have to win this game for us. Just don't lose it for us. Make a couple spectacular plays here and there, but just take care of the football. We'll take care of you type thing. So obviously it's a recipe for success. If they had better weapons on the team, or on offense, maybe they go a little bit further, but I think it's a good foundational like first step in his first year with the team. Speaking of foundational first steps, the Denver Broncos might have a franchise quarterback. Their win total coming into the season was 5.5. They almost double it, going 10-7. We both went hard under. Well, maybe not a hard under because 5 games is not a lot. And I think we both liked Bo Nix coming into the season. But what did we get wrong about this team?
I think we expected Bo Nix to struggle a little bit. Like we liked him, we're like, but we're not sure, right? Like he's a rookie quarterback coming out of a spread offense. How's he gonna do? And he does fantastic. Like we're like, oh, what are his weapons, right? Javonte Williams, Cortland Sutton. Like, are these weapons? Really? Are they really weapons? And we had concerns about their defense. We were like, oh man, what is this defensive unit? Like, who's their best player? Like PS2, right? Patrick Surtain. But what do they have outside of him? Like, we didn't see that. But somehow, I think they have a pretty like decent defense, like top. I want to say it's like top 10-ish, give or take. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I way off? I'm just guessing on these right now.
I made sure to do my research. They were third in scoring defense.
That's what I'm saying. So scoring defense.
Yeah, and they led the NFL in sacks. So
okay, so
there you go.
Pretty good unit, right? So that's what carried them. Like I think we were like, this Broncos defense is trash. No way it's gonna be like anything good. Bo Nix is gonna struggle. Like that's what we were saying. But I did change my tune in the middle of the season, and when we did our hot takes, I said Denver would make the playoffs. So I did see once we saw Bo Nix come out the gate, I was like, oh crap, he's the real deal. Maybe the Broncos could make the playoffs, and they did, and then they got eliminated this weekend. But They did. I mean,
A
they did.
couple,
They
yeah,
exceeded expectations, and the future is bright.
yeah, a couple points here. Okay, we were both wrong. Obviously, the offense was decent. The defense was incredible. That's what we were the most wrong on. I think the offense was probably what we expected. It was they had a couple blowouts. They blew out obviously the Chiefs in week 18. They blew out the Falcons like in the midst of their mid-season slide. But I look back, they really only beat one team with a winning record. They got swept by the Chargers. Got swept. They lost to the Chiefs obviously on that blocked field goal. So maybe you can argue that, but their only two wins this season were Tampa or against winning teams, I should say. Tampa in week 3 and the Chiefs in week 18, which again they played their JV squad. So obviously they overachieved. I don't think it's that we shouldn't like throw a parade for him type thing. Like there's still some questions. I like Bo Nix. I like him coming into the season. And I think my second question, this is more of a general question for you. It's like we look at Bo Nix. He got his team to the playoffs, had a good season. Jaden Daniels has been incredible. We're just coming off, a day or two after he went into Tampa, won a playoff game. Michael Penix looked really good in those 3-4 games that he played. And the one thing they all have in common is that they've played a ton of games at the college level. I think they were both like 5 or 6 year starters because of COVID and all that. But do you think this is enough of a trend where NFL teams are going to prioritize a quarterback that say has, I don't know, 30 starts in college versus somebody like Trubisky or a 3-year guy? I don't know. What do you think?
I think so, right? To your point, we also see that trend in the other direction where you take a Mitch Trubisky, didn't start much, doesn't pan out. Trey Lance doesn't start much, doesn't pan out. There's something to be said for
Forgot about him.
experience,
Yeah.
like Brock Purdy. Yeah, like Brock Purdy is a 4-year starter, goes 7th round, but actually turns out pretty good in the NFL, right? I think they are going to start prioritizing that a little bit, and they're not going to want these prospects who are coming out, like quarterback prospects that, like they only play 20 games, 30 games. They're not going to want that, right? Like they're not going to want these type of younger guys there. I think the trend is going to be these kind of older dudes that have played, got seasoned in the college experience, and can come in and start right away in the NFL. I think that's the recipe for success, right? And like you look at these guys that are coming in, Cam Ward, Shador Sanders, they had a decent amount of starts, both those guys, right? I think Cam Ward is the question mark where he hasn't started as much as Sanders, but I forget how many starts Cam Ward has, but he still has a decent amount of experience under his belt. So I think that is going to be the priority when you look at these NFL drafts and going forward, right? They're going to look at these older prospects, and that's why guys are staying in school. Like Drew Allard could have came out, but he's staying in school because maybe he's probably going to be a top pick next year because people are like, oh look, another year, another college year, and he has a fantastic year again. He's gonna be probably the number 1 pick.
Yeah, him and Carson Beck coming back to school. They also get paid a ton of money, so it makes sense. But I think it's because of the change in approach, right? It used to be, growing up, it would always be, let's draft a quarterback high. Let's let him sit for, I don't know, 2 years, even 3 years sometimes. Let him learn against a veteran quarterback or under a veteran quarterback. And then by the time, he's ready, he's in his 4th, 5th year or 3rd or 4th year, and he's ready to start. Because, I don't think it was about the inefficiencies of the cap room and, oh, he's on his, still on his rookie deal, so he's cheap. Now it's all about, okay, while this quarterback is on their rookie deal, we need to be competitive. So what's the easiest way to be competitive is to get a quote unquote pro-ready quarterback, right? How do you get a pro-ready quarterback? Is you get a quarterback that has a ton of starts, that plays in a pro-style offense. And just even in more recent examples, right? I mean, C.J. Stroud, I think he was a 3-year starter at Ohio State. He's doing really well. Bryce Young, 3-year starter or 2-year starter, but it's taken him a little bit longer, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And then you look at Anthony Richardson, the other guy in that class who only started 1 year at Florida, I believe, and he just does not look ready. Maybe he'll be ready in 2 years because maybe you don't give up on these guys early or right away. I just think it's an interesting conversation. I'm curious to see how that trend continues to play out. All right. Last team here in the AFC West, my boys, the Las Vegas Raiders, preseason over/under, win total 6.5. They fall short of that, going 4-13. We both went over, slightly over. I didn't think they were going to be a playoff team or anything, but slightly over. And of course, they finished well under. So what did we get wrong about this team?
You had me drinking that Raider Kool-Aid, Khaled. That's what it was. I was bought into your Raider Kool-Aid. No, I'm just kidding. I think the mistake the Raiders made here was probably starting Gardner Minshew and not going Aiden O'Connell right off the bat. He looked like the superior quarterback. We couldn't have predicted this weird Devontae vibe coming like in the first 4 weeks of the season where he's just like, yeah, I want to be a Raider. And then he's like, actually, no, changing my mind. Don't want to be a Raider. And he's like popping up in Aaron Rodgers' house. And then he's like traded. And like, what the hell's wrong with Devontae? I mean, there were rumblings of it last year. But I guess it carried over again into this year. He just whatever, just wants the ball, doesn't trust the quarterbacks. He's like getting, I think like you saw it on receivers, right? Where he's just like, cussing out Jimmy G, like freaking why you throwing me into the middle, bro? Like, Devontae, and I think the same thing was happening with Gardner Minshew. Like Gardner Minshew was not the answer. I think he had a little bit of more of a rapport with Aiden O'Connell. The defense was still good for the Raiders, I think pretty decent. But you can't overcome that offensive struggles that the Raiders are having. And to top it off, like Zamir White was not the answer. The running backs just weren't great. Like they don't have any wide receivers after they trade Devontae. So the offense was a big part of the struggle. Defense a little bit, but I think they were pretty average. But they held their own against some teams here.
Yeah, later in the season they started to pick it up a little bit, but I think similar to the Saints and a couple other teams, this was a season from hell. But some of it was their own doing, and some of the things like we just couldn't have predicted. Who predicted that Zamir White, after having a great end of the season last year, becomes a guy that it looks like he doesn't know how to play football? Gardner Minshew, all along, he's a decent backup. He takes Indianapolis to a 9-8 record, and then he again looks like a guy that doesn't know how to play football. Maybe it was Luke Getsy, maybe it was the staff, but Adams or Devontae, he definitely said in the offseason, I want Aiden O'Connell. He backed him to be the starter, and you would think, I thought that was going to be enough to have him, be the starter coming into the season. And then, of course, we had a lot of injuries, a lot of other things went wrong, and you end up in a situation where 3 teams from your division make the playoffs, and you're on the outside looking in. And to make it worse, you win 2 games at the end of the season to keep you away from the number 1 and number 2 pick. So you probably miss out on Shedeur and Cam Ward. So just a lot of things that went wrong. But their only wins of the season, for some reason, Baltimore. That was such a fluke early in the season. I think it was week 2. They beat the Browns with Deshaun Watson, the Jags with Mac Jones, and the Saints with Spencer Rattler. So you beat those 4 teams and you miss out on potentially getting a franchise quarterback this offseason. And now we don't have a coach or a GM. But talk to me in like a month when hopefully we hire Ben Johnson, and maybe I'll feel a little bit better about things. Again, before we move on, how much influence do you think Tom Brady is having on this team?
I mean, what the rumors appear to be is he has quite a bit of influence. Like it seems like Mark Davis is like, hey, Tom Brady, you just take over, bro. Like that's what it sounds like. I don't know. This is just outsider perspective. Based on just like the random Twitter postings I see about what the Raiders are doing, it sounds like Tom Brady has quite a bit of influence and should be a good thing for the franchise, I think.
Yeah, that's the hope, right? You hope he's more, like some of the other, he's more John Elway, who brought a Super Bowl to Denver, than, I don't know, Michael Jordan. There's a long list of former players. I'm just trying to think of like all-time greats that became great front office guys, maybe like Joe Dumars, wearing my Pistons hat. Danny Ainge, all-time great front office guy. So there's a history on both sides. People were like, name one all-time great player that became a great front office guy. I'm like, I can name a few. I can also name a few that didn't do so well as coaches. But anyway, moving on. The AFC East. This was a fun division. We got a lot wrong, got a lot right. The Buffalo Bills. Their over-under coming into the season was 10.5. They end up going over at 13-4. You said under, I said over. What did you get wrong about this team?
Yeah, I was just like, who's Josh Allen going to throw the ball to, right? Like that was the thing. I was like, who are his wide receivers? Who is he going to throw that ball to? And I guess he just spread it around. He got his yards. He got his touchdowns. He did well. James Cook really led that Russian attack, and then the defense was pretty good, solid. So Yeah, I mean, I didn't say they were going to be like, I didn't expect them to be, I thought they were going to be a 10-win team. I think that's where I had them at 10 wins. So they exceeded that by a couple of wins here. But I mean, Josh Allen's making a case for MVP season, but I don't know how you give an MVP to anyone but Lamar Jackson. But he made a case here because he did it with nobody, which is what Lamar does every year. So Josh Allen did it this year.
Uh, I I would go with co MVPs. I know that. I know it hasn't
Yeah,
happened a lot.
I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that Josh Allen and Lamar. That would be dope.
It was kind of cool if you remember Steve McNair and Peyton Manning. Was it like 2003 or something? No, I mean I don't remember
Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
what
that
year
was
it
dope.
was.
Yeah, that was dope. That was dope. That was dope. Yeah,
I
they
think
should do it
they
again.
were in the
Bust it
same
out.
division too. So yeah, it was kind of cool. Like oh, like both of these guys are deserving. And I mean I know I think it's 50 people vote for it. So you'd have to, and they already voted. So the game coming up this weekend won't have anything to do with it. But yeah, for the Bills, like you said, he spread it around. Josh Allen was an MVP caliber player. Um, and they basically went 13-3. The loss at the end was without Allen and basically their B team. So they slightly overachieved. I think we thought the Jets would be better. So we thought the division in general was going to be a little more competitive than it was for different reasons, but we'll get into that. And I think that's probably why you went under. I went over, but not crazy over. I thought again like 11, 12 wins, same thing. Like let's kind of coast, get into the playoffs, um, and see what happens. So kudos to them. Next, the Miami Dolphins. Their over under coming into the season was 9.5. We both went under, and they did go under. They finished 8-9. So what did we get right about this team?
I think we both said we don't think Tua's ever going to play, the full slate of games, 17 games, and he didn't. He had that massive concussion, which he caused by not sliding, right? He just has that history where he's going to miss. He missed what? I think, what, 6 weeks, give or take? He missed 6 weeks.
Yeah, he played
He just,
11 games total. So I think he missed
yeah.
4 weeks in the middle of the season, and then the last 2 games, I think.
Okay, yeah. So like, I mean, it's hard. Miami struggles, right, when they don't have anyone behind Tua. Tyreek Hill has a very down season. He just never gets into rhythm. Jalen Waddle's always hurt, so their offense was just horrendous. I mean, uh, HN was like carrying the offense for most of the part, but he also struggles without Tua. Like it was just a bad offense, and their defense is not good enough to carry them. And that's what happened, right? They still get to 8 wins. They're on the playoff bubble, but I think they got to have some Tua insurance going forward.
Yeah, I think their defense was surprisingly good. They finished 10th in scoring, but the offense was 22nd. I didn't bother looking at the splits between, Snoop Huntley and I forget is it Skylar White? I forget who their other backup is, but I think it was Huntley that started for them. But they were decent with Tua. They went 6-5. You extrapolate that, you're like, okay, that's 9, 10 wins. If he plays the full season. But yeah, that was the whole thing. He doesn't play a full season. Tyreek Hill probably wants to leave now, and you're wondering, what's next for this team? Is there? I just don't see a bright future right now. I think they just have too many questions, and especially in a division with the Bills. And Drake May's coming up. At least you have the Jets. You got 2 games against the Jets every year. Speaking of the Jets, what a disaster! Coming into the season, their over under was 9.5. We both went over for I think the same reasons. And of course, they go under. They go 5-12. So what did we get wrong about the Jets?
I mean, Aaron Rodgers was horrendous, and I mean he was relatively healthy for the season, and he gets his boy Devonte Adams halfway through the season here, and he still struggles. Maybe he has a game or two where he turns it around slightly. He looks really bad. I mean, the defense is struggling. It's just so many problems. Like their offensive line doesn't look great. Their running game is whatever with Brees Hall. Garrett Wilson wasn't getting the ball from Rodgers. I don't like I was a Garrett Wilson fantasy owner. I'm like, what the hell is Aaron Rodgers doing? Like he's just like force feeding the ball to Alan Lazard. Like, and I remember the Niners game, he was doing the same thing, just force feeding Alan Lazard. Like, I don't know. Aaron Rodgers is done to me as a quarterback. He can't play in this league anymore. He can't really hang. And that's what started going wrong with the Jets is like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is kind of washed, and they're like, no, we can turn this around. Let's get Devonte Adams. Devonte Adams, great, yeah, but Aaron Rodgers still washed, right? And then the defense was pretty awful, I think. Like they just gave up a lot of big plays and they just got gashed a lot of the times. And then they scapegoated on Robert Saleh when it wasn't really his fault. Like you give him this level of talent, like who's going to win more than 5 games with that talent when Aaron Rodgers is like not the quarterback we thought what we had hoped he would be after his Achilles injury, and he wasn't that, right? So everything that could have gone wrong for the Jets did go wrong for the Jets, and if I'm a Jets fan, I'm like, damn, I don't know where we go from here. Like, what's the future? I don't know. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't be very hopeful for the Jets.
Yeah, I think it's a safe bet that Rodgers and Adams probably played their last games for the Jets. I don't know 100% if Rodgers retires. He might. Maybe he gets sweet talked into playing for Pittsburgh or some other team that's looking for a vet quarterback. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but you're right. They did scapegoat Robert Saleh. They fired him. They were 2-3 after Week 5. I think they lost to Minnesota in England in the London game, and they fire him and they end up going 5-12. So you win 3 more games the rest of the season, and the defense was good those first 5 weeks, and then they hire Jeff Ulbrich or they promote him, and then the defense falls apart for the rest of the season because he can handle both responsibilities, and of course, on offense, you just look at on paper like we thought before the season, you're like, okay, even a 75% Aaron Rodgers with Brees Hall and Lazard and Mike Williams and blah, 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 and Garrett Wilson. And it just never clicked. I'm forgetting his name, but the guy who was his offensive coordinator, who was also the head coach, Nate Hackett, whatever. Not a good coach. Yeah, I think they need a quarterback. Maybe they bring back Sam Darnold. Maybe they go out and get I don't know, Russell Wilson, who I think just signed a 1-year deal with the Steelers. So I'm not sure what they're gonna do, but it's not looking good for them. Safe to say. There's another team where it is looking a little bit better, maybe pretty good. The New England Patriots. The projected win total this year was 4.5 in the offseason. They end up going just under at 4-13, and we also predicted the under. So what did we get right about the Patriots?
I think we were both kind of aligned here that it's gonna be some growing pains here for the Patriots, right? Rookie quarterback, defense, young guys, no blue chippers on the defense, no really playmakers on the offense. So they're gonna struggle a bit, and which they did. What was surprising to me, Khaled, was they end up firing Jared Mayo after one season. Feels like they didn't give him a chance, and maybe they just thought, maybe they were just like, hey, we want to hop on that Mike variable train right off the bat. Like I think they were just like locked in on him. They were like, oh, he's available, let's go do this. Like just fire Jared Mayo, which was kind of strange to see. But hey, I mean, I thought he did a pretty decent job with what the players he had and the talent he had. Like 4 wins getting out of a team with literally. I couldn't name you a guy that starts on the Patriots outside of Drake May. Like I couldn't name one for you. Like that's how bad of a team they were.
None of the weapons were any good. And I think this was kind of a perfect season for them. This is kind of what you want, with the exception, I think Drake May had a concussion, maybe 2, which is worrisome. But you're like, this is kind of perfect. We were terrible, bad enough to get this guy number 2 or number 3 overall. So we have that quarterback in place, and now we can possibly get the number 1 pick and come back and get, I don't know, Travis Hunter or something like that. But I do think he was shafted. I think Gerard Mayo was the fall guy for this. And like you said, they wanted to get on that Mike Vrabel train, and I think it was unavoidable. And he was just definitely the fall guy. And it was just, the whole thing was kind of annoying with like, Gerard Mayo's the hand-picked successor, and he's all about the Patriot way. And I think if they had known that Mike Vrabel was going to get fired last year, they probably would have just waited and just hired him last year instead. But it kind of worked out perfectly for them, unfortunately, because it's the Patriots. But there's a lot to like about Drake May and the rest of the team. All right, moving on to the next division, the Baltimore Ravens and the AFC North. This was a really competitive division for the most part, and the Baltimore Ravens were predicted to go, or their over-under, I should say, was 10.5. They go just over that with 12 wins. They go 12-5. We both went over, I think, for the same reason. So what did we get right about this team?
I mean, we both knew they were going to be an offensive juggernaut. You put Derrick Henry back there. I mean, Derrick Henry was better than I anticipated. I knew he was going to help, but man, he had a monster season. Lamar Jackson, MVP season. I don't know how he does it with Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman as his like top two weapons. Mark Andrews falls off this year a little bit. It's just crazy how Lamar just finds ways to win, and he finds ways to put up numbers, and he doesn't really have a lot of.
Yeah, tough road for them. They have to go into Buffalo and then Kansas City. Probably Kansas City. I don't think the Texans have a shot, but who knows? Maybe they get to host the AFC Championship game. Yeah, Derrick Henry was a huge difference maker. I think he had 1900 yards, something like that. He was everything that we thought he could be with a good quarterback next to him, because all these years he has not had a good or great or even good quarterback next to him. I'd say Ryan Tannehill was just above average. And I think the weapons, I think, are underrated on this team. I think Zay Flowers is a good receiver. Rashad Bateman is decent. Isaiah Likely, obviously, is talented. Mark Andrews, like you said, fell off, I think, statistically, but he's still talented. I think when you put all that together, that's a pretty good group of guys. So I don't want to say Lamar's doing this all by himself, because I think there is some talent around him. But I'm not trying to take away anything from him in this MVP season. And I think it'd be awesome if they win the Super Bowl. But yeah, it's gonna be a tough road for them. Speaking of tough road, the Pittsburgh Steelers projected win total coming into the season was 8.5. We both went over, and they did go over at 10-7, even though they lost the last 4 games of the season. So what did we get right, and what did we get wrong about this team?
We basically knew Mike Tomlin was going to do his thing. He'd sneak out a way to get 9-10 wins. That's what he does every year. I mean, I don't know, you could give him me as quarterback and he might get 10 wins out of that Steelers team still, right? Like, I don't know how he does it. He does it somehow. Their defense, again, a top 10 defense easily. I think their offense is just average, maybe like, between somewhere like like between 15 and 20. But yikes, like I don't know how they made the playoffs, but somehow they made it, call it. And I think a lot of it credit is that to the defense. Offense, like I think it looked pretty horrendous the last few games, and no one expected him to win. And now Steeler fans are like, should we fire Mike Tomlin? It's like, no, dude, give the guy a quarterback, not like a 40-year-old Russell Wilson. Give him a real quarterback. Like he hasn't had a real quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger retired. So give him a real quarterback and see what he can do with this team.
Yeah, he hasn't won a playoff game, I think, since 2017, which is a long time if you're a Steelers fan. And it's one of those things where all these fan bases that are starving for success. You're talking about the Raiders, the Browns. There's a long list of teams out there that would love to have Mike Tomlin. The Bears, who's gonna bring a sense of like professionalism. Like, hey, maybe you're not happy, getting to the playoffs and not winning, but like we haven't been to the playoffs in, I don't know, 10 years or something. So we'll take Mike Tomlin. So I get why Steelers fans are a little upset. I do think they're spoiled. And it was just, he just needs a quarterback, because you can't win with a washed up Ben Roethlisberger. You can't really win at least tight games with Mason Rudolph. I think they went into Buffalo a couple years back with Mason Rudolph as their starting quarterback. So they've tried. They drafted Kenny Pickett in the first round, just didn't work out. But the funny thing is, when I was listening back to our podcast, the preview one, we had it backwards. We were like, all right, Russell Wilson is going to start, and then 5-6 games into the season, Justin Fields is going to take over and finish it. I don't think we expected the Russell Wilson calf injury, so it was funny. We just had it backwards. Another team, really weird season. The Cincinnati Bengals, coming into the season, projected win total was 10.5. We both went under. I went hard under. I was thinking 6-7 wins. They didn't do that. They got to 9-8, so just a tad under. What did we get right about this team?
I think we both kind of were, we're like, hey man, this is like kind of weird vibes coming out of camp. Chase is holding out. T. Higgins is not happy. Who's their running back gonna be? Zach Moss, Chase Brown. Like who's it gonna be here? I think the problem is they I don't know, their defense was just pretty bad, and like Joe Burrow by all accounts had an amazing season. They just couldn't win games, and they just had some regression where they lost. I think they lost a couple of tight ones there at the end. Had a rough start to the season. I think they go 1-4, things like that. So it's hard to recover from a 1-4 start, right? Like and you got to win those tight games. But Joe Burrow was killing it. He was a killer. And Chase was having some big games. So I don't know. I think you got to pay Chase, and I think you got to let T Higgins walk, and you got to figure this out. But I mean, and Chase Brown came on to his own towards the end of the season as well. So, future is bright. Bengals just got to figure out how to fix their defense and not give up so many big plays. And I think the Bengals will be right back in this thing.
Yeah, I think we overestimated how bad the Joe Burrow injury was, but obviously it was fine. He didn't miss any time this year. He has a MVP caliber season, almost 5,000 yards, 70% completion percentage, 43 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. I think what hurt them was they had the third worst running game in the NFL. I think asking who their running back was going to be and being concerned about that was valid. And their defense, that was really it. They were just horrendous. A couple games here and there where they played well, but for the most part, just a horrible defense that couldn't get any stops when they needed it. And the funny thing is, we were worried about Jamar Chase, and then he goes out and wins the Triple Crown. So he's statistically the best receiver in the NFL. T. Higgins was the one that missed a lot of games with nagging injuries, didn't have like a season ender or anything. He said he wants to come back on a pay cut. I don't know how much I believe that. Maybe he's thinking, oh, I have a great quarterback here and a great number one in front of me, so maybe this is the best place for me. But I think someone's going to throw the bag at him, and we'll see him in different colors next year. But there's a lot to like here. Just draft a bunch of defensive guys, maybe get a running back late in the draft, maybe sign Najee Harris. I don't know. Do something about it. Last and definitely least in this division, the Cleveland Browns coming into the season. Their over-under was 8.5. We both went hard under. Definitely didn't think they were going to be anywhere close to that. And they ended up going 3-14. What did we get right about this team?
We predicted the downfall of Deshaun Watson. I mean, he kind of looked at last season. I don't know why people were like, "Oh, Deshaun, full season, he's gonna be great. He's gonna be this." He didn't look good, and then he gets hurt. He tears his Achilles, and Browns fans are cheering for that for whatever reason. But that's the Brown season in a nutshell, right? They hate their quarterback. They hate their team. Nothing looks good. They don't have playmakers. Jerry Jeudy makes some plays with Jameis Winston at quarterback. He kind of looks okay, but Nick Chubb doesn't look the same. He's not good. It's just a team devoid of talent, and they have so much money tied up in Deshaun Watson. I don't know where you go from here, but obviously you got to draft a franchise quarterback if you're picking number 2 overall, and figure it out from there. I mean, and you have a generational talent in Myles Garrett, right? So you got some pieces. You just got to build off those pieces.
Yeah, I don't know how much longer Myles Garrett is going to be on the team. There's been a lot of smoke about him not wanting to be part of another rebuild, so he's going to ask out. I think a week ago when I was writing my notes, I was thinking that they're not going to draft a quarterback, that they kind of have to run it back with Deshaun Watson if he's back. And then he apparently tears his other Achilles, I think it was, which happens pretty often.
He tears the same Achilles, apparently. He tears the same one.
He tore it. Okay.
Yeah, retore the same one.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That's a different thing. Maybe I don't want to speculate, but maybe he wasn't careful with his rehab, whatever it is. But basically it lets them off the hook because they can just put him on IR again. And I don't know how that's going to affect the cap, but I'm sure they'll have to carry the cap hit. At least it won't be the same dead cap if he got cut or traded or something. So we'll see. I mean, we've seen the Broncos. I mean, the Broncos bounced back with a huge dead cap hit from Russell Wilson. They were able to make the playoffs, but I definitely think they will draft one or the other, whether it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, because they do have that number 2 pick. But it was just such a boring and lifeless team with Deshaun Watson. There's no energy. There was just like nobody likes the guy. You can tell. I mean, I know that his teammates got mad at us fans for celebrating when he got hurt, and they tried to lecture us. And Jameis Winston and Myles Garrett, they all got in their podiums and gave us speeches about not cheering for injury and all that. But I've never seen that reaction before from fans. Usually, like, some people pretend, even if it was like Tyreek Hill, at least, if he got hurt, he has some sordid history a little bit. I don't think people would celebrate it the same way as they have with Deshaun Watson, where like people were throwing a party on social media when the guy got hurt. And when you have that kind of bad juju around your team, you got to cut that loose. So I'm really curious to see how this offseason plays out and the next couple of years play out as they try to navigate the situation. But I will be rooting against them 100%. So I'm hoping they don't get Sanders because I like the kid. All right.
Maybe they trade for Dak, Khaled. Maybe they trade for Dak.
I like that. It's too bad we already did the NFC. That could have been a fun conversation. Maybe we'll do, yeah, mid-season or mid-off-season coaching check-in.
Let's do it.
All right. The last division in the AFC and the worst division in the AFC, the AFC South. We'll start with the Houston Texans coming into the season. Their projected win total was 9.5. We both went over. I think we went hard over. They were your Super Bowl pick in the in the AFC, which they still could be. At least they made the playoffs and won a playoff game. But yeah, we both went over. They won. They got it by half a game, which they didn't need to. They could have won the division at 9-8. But anyway, what did we get right about this team, and what did we get wrong?
I think we didn't predict how much regression we saw from CJ Stroud, right? He doesn't look great this season. Rookie year, he looked better, so it's kind of shocking where most quarterbacks step forward most years. To see that kind of regression from him, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just like the O-line doesn't play as well. I think he doesn't have as much time. He loses Diggs, but he still has and Nico Collins doesn't play, so he's kind of down wide receivers. And then Tank Dell has a season-ending injury towards the end there. So he doesn't have his like usual cast of guys. I think they lean a little bit more on the run game too. Like Joe Mixon has they bring in Joe Mixon, so they lean a little more that way. And I think even the defense regresses a little bit. They're about league average, but hey, he looked pretty good in that playoff game last week. So I don't know. Maybe CJ Stroud's finding his groove again with a healthier Nico Collins and all that stuff. I mean, they got to go to Kansas City, and it's a tough task. But hey, maybe I'm still right, Colin. Maybe they still do make the Super Bowl. But yeah, just a lot of regression from a team that surprised people last year.
Yeah, they were 19th in total offense, 14th in defense. So defense was, like you said, league average. The big regression from Stroud, I think you kind of said it, is that all his top targets missed significant time. Stephon Diggs played 8 games. Tank Dell played 10 or 11. Nico Collins played 12. And they all missed time at different parts of the season. So he didn't have consistency with his weapons. And the big thing was the offensive line. He got sacked, I looked it up, 38 times his rookie year, which is pretty good. That's twice a game. I think he only played 14 games. But this year he got sacked 52 times. So significantly more. And that's, of course, not counting the QB hits and the pressures and all that other stuff. So I think he didn't have as clean of a situation and as clean of a pocket because of that offensive line. So I think that really chalks it up. You can just kind of wipe it away from that. But the defense was good. They got good pieces there. They were in a soft division, and they took advantage of it. So I wouldn't overreact or panic to what we saw from C.J. Stroud this year. I think he'll come back stronger next year. Speaking of panicking and overreacting, the Indianapolis Colts. Projected win total coming into the season was 8.5. We both went over, and they went just a half game under at 8-9. And there was just a lot of things, a lot of drama on this team. So what did we get right about this? Or sorry, what did we get wrong about the Colts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we really predicted how much Anthony Richardson would struggle this year. We thought, okay, pretty solid. Then he got hurt. He'll bounce back. He'll step forward. He struggled early on in the season. Like, he could not make those throws that people, with like those tight window throws that people wanted him to make. He's got a strong arm. He can throw it deep, but he couldn't make reads. He looks like he's missing open receivers. He looks like he's like trying to force the ball too much. And then I don't know if he was hurt or they just I think they decided to just bench him from Joe Flacco, even though he's like somewhat healthy, and they just bench him from Joe Flacco. And then they're like 4 games afterwards, they're like, all right, come back, Anthony Richardson. Let's see what you can do. Like, kind of a weird approach. I think they just asked too much from him this year. And then on top of that, their defense was just bad. So those two things kind of combined, a lot of just drama with Anthony Richardson and his situation. It's just a weird situation. I mean, it was just strange. They just kept going back and forth between him and Flacco. And then I think he gets hurt as well at some point in the season as well. Like, so I don't know. I think they asked too much from him, and he couldn't deliver that.
Okay. But before I give my answer, guess his completion percentage this year.
59%?
47.
Holy crap, dude. That is horrendous. Oh, my God.
I know. It was even 47%. So 47% completion rate. 8 touchdowns, 12 picks. I mean, that's not counting his rushing stats, but this is still his rookie year. He still hasn't played combined, between his 2 seasons, 16 or 17 games. You don't quite give up hope. I think the drama around him was that game. I forget who the opponent was, but he pulled himself out of the game. He did the little helmet tap they do in the NFL, where people were like, "Quarterbacks are allowed to do that." And they asked him about after the game, and he just said, "I was tired." He should have lied. He should have said, "I felt a little tightness in my hammy or something like that, or a stinger," because it was coming off a run where he got tackled. It looked kind of awkwardly, and then he does the helmet tap to come out of the game for a play or two. So he should have just lied. But there's all this stuff after the fact that people are comparing him to Jamarcus Russell, and the fact that he's not studying the playbook, he's not taking things seriously, and it's unfortunate because he seemed like a good dude, and hopefully all this stuff is just rumors for the front office trying to protect themselves. But yeah, they have a big question mark at quarterback coming into next season. A team that does not have a question mark at quarterback, I don't think, is the Jacksonville Jaguars. So coming into the season, their projected win total was 8.5. We both went under, and they went well under, going 4-13. So what did we get right about this team?
I mean, we just knew they were going to struggle. Trevor Lawrence doesn't. I think he misses 7 games. He hasn't played the whole season. They just don't look good on defense. We kind of predicted that. We're like, offense will just be whatever. It'll be okay. And obviously, they don't play well with Mac Jones at the helm for a while. They do have a stud wide receiver in Brian Thomas, who looked even better with Mac Jones at quarterback for whatever reason as the season went on. But outside of that, I don't know. Should you be excited as a Jaguars fan? I don't think so, because you're locked into Trevor Lawrence and you have Brian Thomas. But what else do you have outside of those two?
Not much. You got a couple good pass rushers. What's his name? Trevon Walker. And Josh Hines Allen. So you're like, okay, at least we have that, but not much else on this team. Travis Etienne was a first round pick a couple of years ago. He lost his job. So just not much going on. Not much positive. The only thing you could say is, okay, Trevor missed 7 games, and we have a chance to add like a real difference maker, probably on defense. I think they're picking 5th overall. So maybe they go out and get like Mason Graham from Michigan, stud D tackle, just something to spice up that defense, especially in a division where it's like all you really need is 10 games to win this division, and you can't get that. So it started off well there with Doug Peterson, but it just fell apart, and then obviously he's fired on the first day of the offseason, and at least they don't need to draft a quarterback. I don't think they've given up on Trevor Lawrence just yet. They just gave him a lot of money, so he's going to be there for a little while. But just a big mess there that they need to clean up. Last team here, the last and least in a whole NFL, because they end up with the first pick in the draft somehow. I really did not predict this, but the Tennessee Titans, they projected win total coming into the season 6.5. You went over, I went under. What did you get wrong about this pick?
I was a little too confident in Will Levis and his ability to carry this offense. That's what I got wrong. Yeah, they just were terrible on offense. But somehow they get good seasons from, I think Tony Pollard has a pretty decent season. TJ Spears comes onto his own towards the end of the season. Calvin Ridley looks pretty solid. I mean, I guess that's expected when they got Brian Callahan at the as the head coach, and he's got a good offensive mind. So I think they just need a quarterback. Defense was okay. They could probably get 1 or 2 pieces on the defense, and then they might be a surprise team next year if they get a pretty good quarterback like Sanders or Cam Ward, and that guy holds his own out there, and they could be pretty good.
Yeah, Pollard and Ridley both had 1,000-yard seasons, which is not expected. It was one of those teams where, I mean, obviously I don't follow them that closely, but you just didn't know who was going to start at quarterback, and it almost didn't matter. I'd be watching Red Zone, and they'd be like, all right, over to the Tennessee Titans, where Mason Rudolph threw a pick. And then 30 minutes later, it's like, all right, back to the Tennessee Titans, where Will Levis had the worst turnover you've ever seen in your life. So it was just kind of like a comedy every week, just something different. But they do have talent, right? Spears was good, Pollard was good, Calvin Ridley's good. Westbrook-Akina, he had like that weird fantasy stretch where he was catching 2 touchdowns a game for a couple weeks. So there's talent there. The defense was not great statistically, but it's one of those things where if your offense is horrendous, your defense is probably going to be too. So it's another one where they probably draft Shedeur Sanders. I think he makes the most sense. And I know supposedly Dion is going to control where he ends up. And I mean, Tennessee's not a bad place to be. I think he doesn't want him to go to the Browns, is the rumors.
Yep.
But, you know,
I
there's worse
now
places.
The rumors are now Dion might take over the Cowboys and then try to trade over his son. So we'll find out.
They'd have to trade. Let's see. The Cowboys are now picking 12th.
Yeah.
And they have
the rumor is they trade
space.
they trade Dak to the number 1 pick to the Titans. That's the rumor, or to the Browns, wherever Sanders falls. But they may go all the way up to 1, trade Dak there, trade the 12th pick, something like that, and try to take Sanders.
I mean, if you're Tennessee, I don't know.
I would do it if I'm Tennessee. I might do that. I'm like, damn, I can get Dak and proven quarterback, and I got some weapons for him out here. I might do that. He's already played with Tony Pollard. I consider.
Yeah, you got me thinking. He might be the second. I mean, is he better than C.J. Stroud? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
There's an argument. Well, C.J. Stroud this year, yeah, he's better than him. Trevor Lawrence, yeah, I'd say so. So yeah, he's arguably the best quarterback in that division. So that's an interesting a little wrinkle, because I was like, I don't think Cleveland can afford Dak because he's making a ton of money, but Tennessee, I mean, they don't have many stars on the books, so I think they could probably afford him. I'd probably have to look it up, but yeah, we'll see. Jerry Jones is getting old. Maybe he's just like, I'm going to gamble and hire Dion and see what happens.
Maybe. Let's see. I mean, they definitely talked about it. Dion said that much. Jerry Jones called him up about it. So we'll see what happens. Let's see what Dion does, and let's see what they make of it. But that'd be interesting.
I might need to. Yeah, I'm saying I might need to turn on my Twitter notifications for Adam Schefter.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Yeah, I got him on. That's right.
What's his name? Ari Meirov guy, the NFL sports update, or my sports update, or whatever.
You got to get those two guys for sure.
All those guys.
For sure.
Well, this was fun, man. I think for the most part, we did pretty well. You know what I should have done? I should have gone and looked our records, but I think for the most part on our spreadsheet, I'm seeing a lot of green. So we'll have to look and compare, see who got the most right. And maybe we just track this for next year, because we'll definitely be doing another over-under pod coming in probably August, September, during training camp or preseason at some point. But we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure to hit that follow, like, subscribe button wherever you're listening or watching this podcast. Appreciate you, and appreciate you so much.
All right.